I don't know.
I'm gonna grab some headphones for this thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna stream it on Facebook. I have like 30 people watching last year.
Nice.
At the same time.
Very nice.
Contact your Stiefel financial advisor at stiefel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
The markets experienced a sudden plunge in the first quarter of 2020, but rebounded quickly. A reminder that it's important to focus on long-term goals instead of
I actually got a
short-term
lot of
events.
clips
But are
of
you now
media,
getting caught up
compilations
in
of media
let it
talking
ride
about the
mentality during this unchecked market
truckers and
Oh yeah.
and the big picture in up and down markets? I'm Lori Heisey with Heisey Advisory Group. We all
some
know
other stuff.
Whoa. Are you gonna play clips from over there, or you gonna
I'll play from my computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have that ready to go. No problem.
314-328-7700. Get your copy of our Riding Market Highs
Do the
brochure
old-
to learn steps to take
old-fashioned
to
way.
position your
Look at that. That
Headphones
is
on the
some-
phone.
That is impressive. Look at this.
Gotta rig it.
Oh my lord.
It works.
That's
People
wonderful.
people can normally hear the clips.
Boy, that's great.
If it works, learned it in the Marine Corps. If it works, but it's stupid, it isn't stupid.
That's
I
right.
struggled with symptoms like frequent
Work
gas
smarter,
and
not
stomach pain for years.
not harder. If
Yeah.
it works, it works.
Bloated all the
There you
time
go.
with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating,
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
so I did my research and talked to my doctor.
So I got
and
some
finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI.
on my
Exocrine
website is where I
pancreatic
just have some links to a couple
insufficiency,
different
or
articles
EPI,
and
is a condition where your pancreas
different
is
clips.
unable to help break down your food.
Yeah, I
It can
am
lead to
on
symptoms like
paulkerman.com.
diarrhea, gas,
Number
bloating,
35.
stomach pain,
If there is a
unexplained weight
place,
loss,
do I need to go
and
to
Yep.
number 30?
it's easy.
Use the
Well, then I'll
symptom
have this
checker
stuff up.
at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, do I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
It's the path to business prosperity to find your best clients. On Gino. In other words, people with big voices like News Talk STL. And then to kick them off the platform.
All right, coming back here.
Stating an opinion.
All right.
Days at
A little bit
11.
early.
It's an effective business model on News Talk STL.
I have the laptop up as well, so with that and the mic. Here we go.
Good afternoon, St. Louis. This is Paul Kurtman on News Talk STL in the studio today with Max Foisey. I've gotten to work with Max a couple times. Great to be with you again, Max.
Oh, it's always fun. Thanks so much, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you. And as soon as I came in the studio, Max immediately complimented me on being dressed to the
Well,
nines, as
You
they
look
say.
dapper. I mean, I was grabbing a cup of coffee, and then the door, there's a knock on the door, and there's a bespectacled man in a nice three-piece suit. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, where's Paul Kurtman? But you look fantastic.
And I shaved the beard also.
Yes,
I did that
that's
earlier
right.
this
Yes,
week.
you did.
So I'm a much cleaner face. And so the reason I'm dressed the way that I am, I got
Well,
a few
it's
things
because
going
I'm
on.
here, and you thought,
Well, yes, that's true. Actually, I was going to wear a suit anyway, but when I realized that you were going to be in studio, I said, I'm adding a pocket square.
sure, and I appreciate that.
Take it all the way to the top. But I just came to the studio today from State Lincoln Days, which is the Republican state party. Every year they have this big meeting, and they have different breakout sessions. They have speakers come in. There's a dinner. It's just an opportunity for the party to maybe raise a little money, bring together different players or different politicians that have been active and involved in the party. Activists also turn out. It's kind of an interesting day, though, because normally on the day that we have State Lincoln Days, all the Republicans in the state are all coming in. But we still have Republicans in Jefferson City because the Senate has been, and this I actually wasn't going to talk about this today because there's so much else going on, but the Senate there's been a filibuster in the Senate because the state Senate, there's the conservatives there and some others that are pushing for congressional maps that would give us 7 Republicans and 1 Democrat. Of course, right now we have 6 Republicans and 2 Democrats. And the map that's on the docket to be voted, congressional map that needs a vote, And they're hopeful that we can actually get a 7-1 map. So instead of 6 Republicans, we have 7 Republicans representing the people of Missouri. Now, there's a lot of people that feel differently about this. If I was going to analyze this for just a second, some people would say, no. Right now, we have a safe 6-2 map, 6 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Everybody seems to be happy with that. Let's keep doing it. Others are saying, no, there's so many Republicans in Missouri now. What we should have is we should have a 7-1 map. But what that would do is it would necessarily require one of our 2 Democrat seats be drawn in a way that it's more likely to be Republican. So St. Louis or Kansas City. So this is where it gets a little bit crazy here because I don't know. I'm going to play the side that says, no, 6-2 is good. I'm going to put on that hat right now and say, let's wait a minute. Let's all just relax. Yeah, we could draw a 7-1 map, but it might just be 7-1 for 1 or 2 election cycles before it goes back to 6-2. Because we would have to get rid of a Democrat seat in St. Louis or Kansas City in order to make it a 7-1 map. And how long is that Republican seat? How long is a Republican going to represent St. Louis or Kansas City before it eventually just goes Democrat again? Because we're talking about Democrat strongholds in Kansas City. Let me put on the other hat now. The other hat says, hey, we have a good opportunity here to send 1 more Republican congressman to Washington, D.C. We have the numbers. We control the map process. We control the votes in Jefferson City. Why not just do that? I think one thing that you have to consider is the long-term effect. Are we going to long-term have a 7-1 map, 7 Republicans and 1 Democrat? Or can you just count on the fact that Kansas City and St. Louis eventually, even if one of them gets drawn to where it's Republican, is it going to wind up going back to the Democrats in just 1 or 2 election cycles? A lot to consider there. But anyway, there's Republicans in Jefferson City in the state capitol today on a Saturday, still debating this issue, working out this issue, hashing out this issue. And there's a lot of activists that are showing up out in Jefferson City. I think they're calling it the No Mo Rhinos rally. Of course, the rhinos in this case being the ones that want to keep a 6-2 congressional map. So the drama. Usually we don't get into this type of drama in an election season early on in the year, but of course now we are. And of course anybody else who's going to be on the ballot, either a primary or general ballot later on in August or November of this year, they're all being pulled into this and being forced to pick a side. Are you for a 7-1 map or a 6-2 map? Because you're either a rhino or you're not. But I'm telling you what, the way districts are drawn is way more complex than just, is it a 7-1 or a 6-2 map? It is far more complex. One of the senators, for example, there was a senator that I saw on Facebook, usually a pretty conservative senator, but who's going for the 6-2 map. They said, let's keep it the same. Let's not send an extra Republican. And the reason is she's saying that if we draw Kansas City or St. Louis, Missouri, and we make that a red district, a Republican district, well, then that means that the people in St. Louis City are also going to be represented by a Republican who's also going to have to be representing somebody that's further outstate, maybe a more rural area. And so now we have 1 congressman representing 2 completely different demographics of people. And of course, our Constitution and the prevailing thought is that we need to keep communities together. So there's just a lot to think about when these people are having these debates and discussions. And another thing, Max, I don't know if you think this is a conflict of interest, but I certainly do. If you're going to have people draw congressional maps, is it a good idea or a bad idea to let political consultants who get paid by congressmen and candidates have a say in how those maps are drawn?
Well, I think that's pretty evident.
Yeah, that sounds like a conflict of interest to me.
Yeah, if that's your job, then yeah.
Yeah, if you are getting paid by a congressman, if you're getting paid out of a political campaign fund to get people elected, for you to also have a seat at the table and influence how these districts are drawn,
Woof.
yeah, I'm not for that, but there's a little bit of that going on also. Anyway, but let's move on to something else that's happening. This is what's getting most of the attention. And, I mean, you could throw a rock anywhere in America right now and hit a hot button issue. The other hot button issue right now, not just an American issue, it's soon to become an American issue, but right now it's a Canadian issue, and that is the issue with the Freedom Convoy. So, just the other week, GoFundMe, everybody was raising money for these truckers through GoFundMe, this online online platform where you can raise money for different causes. GoFundMe says, we're with the politicians, we're with the government on this. We think that there's hateful rhetoric and violence and white supremacy, so we're going to stop all the money going to these truckers. And they basically put out, now this is something, I am all for freedom. Businesses should be allowed to do whatever they want, but this is a little bit of a racket. Because what GoFundMe did is they put out a statement that said you can ask for your money back in the next 24 hours, and then we're keeping it. And we're not sending it to the people you want to send it to. We're going to send it to the charities of our choosing. So this is what I love about capitalism. One company doesn't do what you want them to do. Another company rises to the occasion and says, hey, we'll fill that gap. And so there's a Christian organization, a Christian company called Give, Send, Go. And they immediately said, hey, we will fill that gap. Send your money to us. We'll make sure it gets to these convoys, to this freedom convoy. So Give, Send, Go raises $5 million. Quickly became the largest campaign that they've ever had in terms of raising money. And then Canada comes down with another mandate, another rule. And it says, we are going to freeze all the funds from Give, Send, Go. And they're not going to be allowed to send money to these truckers either. And now we have conversations happening in America. Well, we're going to have our own freedom convoys going to Washington, D.C., and there's all kinds of questions and concerns about what that's going to do to the Super Bowl and other things that people care about. But the politicians, never let a good opportunity go to waste. And you can see, I'm going to play this clip in a little bit, but the authoritarianism, if you go to paulkurtman.com and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that radio tab. And radio number 35, the title is Authoritarianism and Control. And we have a compilation here at paulkurtman.com, and I'm going to play some clips here from the media about the trucker protest and other people having conversations. And we can see that right now we are in a battle where the government, where the media, they do not want to relinquish control. They can't give an inch here. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, he's got a very heavy-handed way of handling this whole trucker situation. He's saying
has sucked for all Canadians. Residents that I have spoken to say they feel terrorized, intimidated. Residents say they feel like hostages. Residents in that area say that they are being held hostage, that this freedom convoy, as they call it, has essentially imposed a lockdown on them.
Tied to anything about COVID, truckers called the Freedom Convoy. The so-called Freedom Convoy.
So-called Freedom Convoy of truckers. It's a cult.
Yes, it is. We've heard it called a nationwide insurrection, a threat to democracy, an insurrection, sedition.
This is a moment for responsible leaders to think carefully about where they stand and who they stand with.
There you go. We just wrapped that clip up with Justin Trudeau saying this is a calling for leaders to think carefully about where they stand, who they stand with. This whole time, all these different media personalities. Violence, it's an insurrection. It's a nationwide global movement now. Insurrection. People rising up against not their neighbor. They're not rising up, to root for a football team. We got Super Bowl. Everybody loves the Super Bowl, right? We love the Super Bowl. We love to root for our team. This isn't about people rising up to cheer on for their team. This is about people rising up to cheer on for their freedom. They just want their freedom back. In Canada, they got these nationwide mandates. Fortunately, in the U.S., we haven't really had any nationwide mandates like we've seen them try to implement in Canada. Now, President Biden has certainly tried, but fortunately, as much as it's been trampled on, as much as it's been torn to shreds, really by both parties, it still manages to work and protect us from time to time to help keep us free, our Constitution. President Biden tried to have a nationwide vaccine mandate by forcing businesses to force their employees to get vaccinated. Otherwise, the businesses would face fines. And you've probably heard me say it if you've listened to the show before, the biggest bully that you can ever try to stand up against is the hardest bully to ever stand up against is the bully that signs your paycheck. And I call him that because when someone has that authority to sign your paycheck, they also have an opportunity there to extort you to make sure that you continue to get paid. Now, businesses don't like to do that because that's terrible for morale. It's bad for turnover. You're not going to have good employees if you do that. But when the government forces businesses, when the government extorts businesses to extort their employees, that's exactly what President Biden was trying to do last year when he had that vaccine mandate that fortunately the courts have struck down. But at the very end of this clip that I just played, Justin Trudeau says this is a time for leaders to very carefully consider who they're with. Well, I'll tell you who Canada's not with. Canada is not with the people. If you go to my Facebook page, you can search me out at Paul Kurtman. I put a clip up there yesterday. Get this, and this is how scary and dangerous this can really be. Authoritarianism and control. That's what we're talking about right now. Authoritarianism and control. 1984, right? You read the book 1984, you got Big Brother who's watching everything you do. In Canada, the government is now monitoring Facebook pages. This is nothing new. I think if you think the government's not monitoring social media accounts, you are incredibly naive. You've been living under a rock. But what's happening in Canada right now there are groups on social media that are it's just people speaking out in support. They're making comments, they're liking posts, or they're sharing things in support of the Freedom Convoy. And when the Canadian officials, as they're monitoring this, they are beginning to put people on lists, and they are sending police, armed police, right? Police carry guns. They're sending police to their doors to let them know, hey, we saw what you've been doing on social media, and we want to give you a pamphlet here just to let you know, just to remind you what you are and are not allowed to do, what constitutes a protest or a peaceful protest. Now, it might seem like a little thing, right? They're not arresting anybody. No. They're not arresting anybody. But what they're doing right now is they are openly not just monitoring free speech, not just monitoring your social media activity, but they're monitoring your social media activity and then putting you in a list of people that need to have a police officer sent to their door to let them know, hey, we know you're getting involved on Facebook. We know you're getting involved on social media. And so that's why we're sending police to your door. People are okay with that kind of stuff. They're not doing that. They're not just sending you a message back on social media saying, hey, we saw you're doing this. No. They're sending police to people's door. They're knocking on the door and letting them know we are watching you. And we want you to know that we know what you're saying on social media. And so here's a little flyer just to remind you that the government's watching you, and here's the things that we're okay with and the things that we're not okay with. I got a clip, paulkerman.com, lady answering her door with her cell phone in hand just to document that happening. But this is the world that we are we are evolving into. Not just geographically, not just here and there, but kind of globally. There's this global movement, this global push towards authoritarianism. And when Justin Trudeau, I don't know if he's the youngest prime minister in Canada or that Canada's ever had. I don't know if he's the youngest executive that any country's ever had. The guy looks like he's 30, 25 maybe. I mean, he's a young guy. He looks young. He's a good-looking guy. It's probably really helped him out. He wears a suit really well, and he stands up and he tells the Canadian people, he tells them he's not just telling the Canadian people, he's telling all people, I suppose. But he says now is the time for leaders to consider who you're standing with. And he's not saying that in an effort to make sure that you're standing with the people or with the freedom of the people. He's calling out to leaders to make sure that they understand, hey, now's the time to understand who you're with. Are you with the rest of the government leaders, the rest of the government elite? Or are you going to cave and fold and start relinquishing power back to the people? Because that's something that Justin Trudeau is not willing to do. And in America, we've seen Republican governors doing this. Most famously, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, taking a stand for individual liberty, individual freedom, no statewide mandates. We're going to let local jurisdictions handle this. We're going to let people decide whether or not they want to wear a mask. But now we're seeing Democrat governors from across the whole country say, hey, we want to get back to normalcy. We want to get back to letting people actually have their lives back. And I've got a clip. We'll play this in the second segment. What is happening with COVID right now, this big rift in people in leadership to continue this move towards authoritarianism or this move towards letting people have their lives and their freedom back. In America, at least, I think that one of the biggest reasons for that is because we're now in the middle of a midterm election. People are filing for office, and probably right now some of the biggest questions, they have to actually implement a vaccine mandate if they want to stay in business. And so we've got politicians that are saying it's probably time to start letting people have their freedom back. We've got a clip. We're going to play this in a little bit. You can actually hear this playing out in the mainstream media. Earlier this week, I was filling in for Chris Arps on Chris Arps and Tim Jones show, and I was playing. Maybe I should make a segment out of this. I was playing Paul Stradamus. I was making a prediction. And I think that what's going to happen is I think Joe Biden, right now, there's a call for him from his advisors telling him, Mr. President, we need to get back to normalcy. It's probably not good. It's probably not a good idea politically to continue going down this authoritarianism, this despotic road of controlling people's lives as a measure of getting ahead of the pandemic. It's probably a better idea if we just let people have their lives back. We'll call it a return to normalcy. But in order to do this, they're going to have to say that they've beat COVID. And I was talking about this. I was talking a little bit about this with Tim Jones earlier this week. And I made a prediction as Paul Stradamus. And I said what's going to happen is I believe they're going to change the metrics. They're going to change the way they measure COVID. They're going to change the way they measure the deaths from COVID. They're going to change the way they measure who is fully vaccinated. Right now, if you're going to be fully vaccinated, you have to be vaccinated and have booster shot 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5. I don't know however many booster shots they got out right now. But watch them just go back. Watch the science suddenly change and they say, no, you're fully vaccinated if you've had a vaccine shot. So once they start changing the metrics, they're going to start saying the science has changed. And this is exactly what I said earlier this week on Tim Jones and Chris Arps. How much time do we got left here, Max?
Couple minutes, sir.
Couple minutes? Well, maybe we got time to go ahead and play this other clip. Let me see. Okay, I'll go ahead and play it. Here we go. This is the media already beginning to change the science because this is what it sounds like when people begin to panic about the 2022 midterm elections.
Do you agree with the move?
I do. There was and is a time and place for pandemic restrictions, but when they were put in, it was always with the understanding that they would be removed as soon as we can. And in this case, circumstances have changed.
Years as one of the leading financial.
Did you hear this lady having a debate at Oxford University saying that
The meat eating thing?
meat eating?
Yes.
That, oh my goodness.
We played that on Tobler Show today.
Did you? Oh, it's
And
so
it's
funny.
incredible. She was like, sexy fish, sexy lamb. She's like, unbelievable, the connections.
You see the video, see the guy sitting behind her trying not to laugh?
I did not see the
Oh
video.
man, there's a kid sitting behind her and he's like,
The audio is amazing. It's so funny.
the woman that debated on the opposite side of her was Jordan Peterson's daughter, is what I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And all she is, she's on like this meat eating diet. You heard of this? These people that eat only meat?
No.
I don't know if they do it for a long time, but I don't know if it's something they always do.
I kind of feel like, just like everything else, moderation is the key. So
Yeah.
you know what? Like, I love potatoes and celery and like non-meat stuff. And tomorrow, Super Bowl Sunday, I'm gonna have a ton of chicken wings and brisket and meat. There's nothing wrong with either of those.
Uh-huh.
Why do you have to pick a team and fight against people?
Why do you gotta go so far to say
Right. Yeah.
your hamburger comes with a dose of misogyny?
Yeah, that's what she did. I know, it's insane. Well, and by the end of it, she was like, "You are a white supremacist if you eat meat." And I'm like, "Oh my God, how is what?"
She got like all the wokeism for everything.
You're
Everything.
Right. You're right. She just checked everything down the
Every
line.
box.
Yeah.
She got it all down into a minute and 40 seconds.
Certainly, meat eaters should eat more vegetables. I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
But my God, calling people white supremacists because you eat a hamburger, Jesus, it's insane. All right, coming back.
Okay.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners. If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
I'm not going to turn my dialogue to you guys. I really like this channel.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home. If you internationally, including to the U.S. We've heard your frustration with COVID, with the measures that are there to keep people safe. We've heard you. It's time to go home now.
There you go. That is Justin Don Vito Corleone Trudeau making Canadians an offer that they cannot refuse. Justin Trudeau saying, listen, we've heard you. We've heard you. You're upset with the pandemic. We get it. We understand. But if you continue, this is going to affect your job, your livelihood, and your ability to travel internationally. So go home. Tell you what, if that's not a story for, how many Godfathers have there been? You're the perfect guy to ask. How many have there been?
3.
Okay, this is Godfather number 4.
Godfather 4.
Godfather 4, Justin Trudeau. He's a made man in the mafia now, or at least he certainly sounds like it. Going to make the Canadians an offer that they can't refuse. Go home, or we are going to ruin your life. But this is the far left now. This is authoritarianism, and this is what it looks like. Listen to the people. It's time. We got to listen to the people. Listen, we've heard you. And what's so crazy about this? What is so incredibly backward about this whole thing is he keeps saying, we hear you, we hear you, we hear you. But what you're doing is disrupting democracy. Well, the way democracy, like in the truest sense of that word, what it means is that when the people speak, the people are supposed to get their way. But Justin Trudeau thinks, no. Democracy is everybody agreeing to do what I say to do. That's what democracy is. That's why we've had enough of your honking. We've had enough of your trucks. We've had enough of these views that you hold that are reprehensible and dangerous. You have to do what I say. Because democracy is when everybody agrees, not the direction, not their own path, not their own destiny. But Justin Trudeau thinks that democracy is when everybody agrees to do what he says. But, meanwhile, back in America, we have midterm elections coming up. I'm going to finish playing this clip now of the science changing. This is on CNN. This is the CDC. This is the science. These are the doctors. These are the people that have been telling us how to live our lives in order to get out ahead of the pandemic. But now the science is changing. They just said that science has changed.
Soon as we can. And in this case, circumstances have changed. Case counts are declining. Also, the science has changed. We know that vaccines protect very well against Omicron, which is the dominant variant. Everyone 5 and older have widespread access to vaccines. And we also know about one-way masking, the idea that even if other people around you are not wearing masks, if you wear a high-quality mask, that also protects you, the wearer, too.
I'll stop it right there because I got to weigh in on this. Now we're being told one-way masking is the way to go. One-way masking. So not everybody. So all these people who have gone absolutely insane. Just a few weeks ago, there's a clip of a woman who spit on another man on an airplane because he didn't have his mask on. I think he was eating something or whatever, but he had his mask. It just wasn't up around his face. And so because it's all about your health, sir, I'm going to spit on you. I mean, that's the craziness of the far, far, far left where this pandemic is concerned. But now we're being told, these are the leaders that have been telling us how to live for the last 2 years. Now they are saying the exact same thing that myself and so many other people have been saying. If you want to keep yourself safe, if you have concerns, then you wear a mask. You have the freedom to wear a mask. You don't have to force everybody to wear a mask. Here she is saying the science has changed. We now know that one-way masking works. Folks, 1 year ago today, Anthony Fauci was telling everybody that they needed to wear 2 masks. 2 years ago today, Anthony Fauci was sending emails to Mark Zuckerberg, and we discovered this through a Freedom of Information Act request as these emails have been made public. He was telling people that you didn't need to wear a mask at all. Masks weren't designed to do this type of thing, to keep people free from disease in the middle of a pandemic. So let's follow the science changing for the last 2 years. So now we're learning from the CDC that the science has changed. Folks, we've seen this changing before our eyes, almost in real time for the last 2 years. 2 years ago, don't wear masks. It doesn't matter. They weren't designed for this. 1 year ago, you need to wear 2 masks. So here we are again, 2 years into this pandemic, and we're being told, you know what? If you want to keep yourself safe, just wear a mask. One-way masking is a good way to go. It works.
And so in this case, I'm not saying, I don't think anyone really is saying that no one should ever wear masks, but rather that the responsibility should shift from a government mandate imposed from the state or the local district on the school. Rather, it should shift to an individual responsibility by the family who can still decide that their child can wear a mask if needed.
I'm going to stop it there again because right now, I'm telling you, this CNN clip is so incredibly rich because they are saying every single thing that conservatives have been saying. Not just conservatives, liberals too. There are liberals out there, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we have an there's something inside of people, they just want to be free. Sometimes people, they think freedom, they want to be part of the club, and so they join the authoritarian side. Sometimes that happens, but for the most part, I think people just want to be free. And so right now we're hearing on this CNN clip, they're saying the responsibility should just go back to the family. Keep in mind, it was just a matter of months ago that President Biden's administration, Merrick Garland, had this memo sent out, and people were up in arms because the FBI, this memo from, who was it, the National School Administrators Association or something, they were afraid of parents. Parents were the terrorists. Parents were the bad guys. But now, where it comes to masks, you know what? We're going to let these terrorists, we're going to let these violent extremist parents, we're going to let them decide whether or not their kids should be wearing masks. Why is it that suddenly there's this reversal of ideology and they want to start relinquishing power from the government back to the people? One word, 2-syllable word, or hyphenated words, I don't know. Midterm election, 2022 is coming up, and people are tired of the authoritarianism.
Take New Jersey, the case in New Jersey, for instance, their new case average is just over 4,000. Is that an acceptable number to do this, or are they projecting out to March 7th at this point?
I don't think we should be looking at case counts at all at this point, especially when we're dealing with a milder variant and when so many people were exposed to Omicron and therefore have at least some level of protection either through vaccination or immunity.
Here we go again. Oh my goodness. Why could not they have just been listening? People have been wanting the government for the last 2 years to start saying, hey, it's not just about vaccination rates, but we also have to consider natural immunity, people that have been exposed. So now that we're facing an election here in just a matter of months, suddenly what everybody has been saying, you would have been deplatformed from social media for asking questions about natural immunity. Why? Well, because you're not following the science. And when people say you got to follow the science in this particular environment, what they really mean, or at least the way I've always interpreted it to mean, is you just need to follow your authoritarian leaders. I could ask this same lady, I could ask CNN the exact same questions. Well, where's all the science? Talk to me about the science. She just said, we don't even need to be looking. What they're talking about is they're talking about the 7-day average of new coronavirus cases. And in New Jersey, their 7-day average is 4,000 new cases. That's the average. For a 7-day window of time, there's 4,000 new cases. But what this woman is saying is she's saying, no. We shouldn't even be considering the averages. That's obsolete. That doesn't matter. How many people are actually getting sick? We shouldn't even consider that data. We just need to start getting people their freedom back. Let the parents decide whether or not they want to be free. Now listen, I don't want to harp on this lady. I don't want to harp on the CDC or CNN all too much. I don't want to get onto these Democrat governors in Connecticut, New Jersey, and Delaware, and California. I don't want to get on them too much, because whenever anybody is willing to give me my freedom back, I want to take it. And I want them to understand that this is what they should have been doing all along, And as long as we have so-called leadership, or as long as we have elected leadership, as long as we have somebody who's willing to give us our freedom back, then I'm going to work with them to give me my freedom back. I'm okay with that. But my frustration does not stem from the fact that they're saying, hey, this should all be family decisions, or hey, we should consider natural immunity. I'm not frustrated with that. I'm frustrated with the fact that for the last 2 years, parents have been treated like criminals. Business owners who have already sacrificed everything to get their doors open and then try to make a living had to have their doors shut again by government mandate. And this whole time, people have been saying, well, wait a minute. Let's consider things like natural immunity. Let's consider the science of, do masks actually work? And we've been met with resistance. We've been met with getting deplatformed on social media accounts so we couldn't even ask questions. And now the left, the far left, the people who want this type of authoritarianism, now, what is it that they're doing? Now they're starting to say things that we've been saying for the last 2 years, only they're saying it as if they're telling us the same things for the first time ever. They're saying it as though it's the first time anybody's ever said this stuff.
The key number that we should be looking at is hospitalizations. If our ICUs and hospitals in that particular region are not overwhelmed, if they're not over capacity, we can set a number, for example, 75% or 80% full, then we should be able to relax all restrictions. And I actually believe that we should be starting to, with the first restriction removed, should actually be the restriction on children. Because
There we go. We need to start taking these restrictions away from children. We shouldn't be trying to predict how bad things are going to be. We should actually consider what the hospitals look like and how bad things actually are. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it looks like when you let politicians run your life. They will confuse you. Oh, wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. Mask your kids. Don't mask your kids. You have to have the vaccine. Oh, now you have to have a vaccine plus 2 boosters. Oh, wait, you know what? Let's just consider natural immunity. What they are doing is they're doing all of this in order to play and toy with your vote, just so they can stay in power. That's what all of this is about. That's what all of it's about. We've had other pandemics in the U.S. where people haven't gone to these lengths to control people and restrict their movement, restrict their ability to earn a dollar and provide for their family. But right now, we have politicians in this country who have just completely become drunk with power, drunk with control, and they will confuse you and scare you and have you doing anything that doesn't make sense, as long as it helps them retain votes. And now we see it. The same stuff that conservatives and people that just want to be free, the same stuff that we have been saying for the last 2 years, the left is now starting to say. And the only reason for this the only conclusion I can come to is because there are votes on the line. And they want to try to maintain power in Washington, D.C. It's what Trudeau's trying to do in Canada. Hey, when we come back, we're going to finish up a little bit more of this, a couple other headlines that we're going to get to. And then, Libs at TikTok. Governor Ron DeSantis has a bill that he's going to be signing in Florida, and the far, far left, and I say the far left, not the Democrats, the far left is up in arms about it. We'll be right back. This is Paul Kirkman in the studio here today, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Excellent. I will be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
One more segment to go.
All right.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and newstalkstl.com.
How is your car payment treating you? What if I told you you could make a free phone call right now and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Look at your car payment closely. You could be paying as high as 20% interest. Rate Genius can help you reduce your car payments by reducing your interest rate to as low as 2.48% APR. We can refinance most existing car loans or leased cars, new or used, and save you money every month. Put more money back in your pocket. The call is free to find out how low we can lower your car payment. 5 minutes of your time right now could save you hundreds of dollars a year. Call Rate Genius now.
800-764-2179. 800-764-2179. 800-764-2179.
Hey, keep watching. We're coming back up on the third and final segment of today's show. We're going to hit our Libs a TikTok clip. You're going to want to stick around for that because it is crazy. It's a lib on TikTok acting crazy.
With open mic night every Thursday and national comedians on the weekend. This week it's Vikram Balaji, plus upcoming shows featuring Chris Sir, Dan Brown, and the Copenhagen Bandit. The Backdoor Comedy Club offers special deals for groups, and they have no drink minimum. For more information and to purchase tickets, go to backdoorcomedyevents.com. Use promo code NewsTalkSTL to save 20%.
Do you have debt problems? Credit card debt, collection accounts, medical bills, and repossessions? Call now for relief.
866-451-DEBT. 866-451-DEBT. 866-451-DEBT.
The future depends on teachers. Every day, teachers are shaping our tomorrows, starting their students on journeys that will change the course of history.
Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who will make preventing pandemics the life's work. Sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat
Okay, so your out is gonna be
And generating possibilities for a student who
3,
becomes
so
the first in their family
56.
to graduate
Is
college.
that normally when you're out?
Yeah, that sounds about right. 56.50.
Yeah, I think that's all. Standard Jeff Allen clock, so should be good.
Who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code, and who enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Shape the future. Teach.
YouTube are the anti-communists.
All right, come back.
As an American citizen, I find YouTube is all in on state propaganda, state control. YouTube is a left-leaning totalitarian company dedicated to totalitarian principles. The way many of you heard, because it happened on the air, that YouTube is now banned me for life, and it is hilarious how they are trying to spin their ban of me to save face. On Gino, weekdays at 11 on News Talk STL.
Come on. Why you're not moving?
St. Louis's place to talk.
All right, we're good.
All right.
Lost faith in our parental institutions.
People can decide what they want and how they want to live.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
All right, and we are back. This is Paul Kurtman here in the studio today at News Talk STL with Max Foisey. And this is the third and final segment. We've only got a few minutes here, so we're going to get to Libs at TikTok, but I got to ask you a question here, Max.
Sure.
They're debating whether or not congressmen ought to be able to own, trade stocks.
I'm shocked this is even on the table, that they would even think of getting rid of it because it's the biggest scam in history.
Here's the thing, though, right? So my answer is I don't think they should be banned from it.
Sure.
But here's the thing. Insider trading, and this is why people want to ban them, it's already against the law.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember this, but it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, a bunch of congressmen got caught using insider information to place trades, made tons of money, and so then Congress was like, everybody came out of the woodwork. We're going to get ahead of this, because this is not right. We're going to ban insider trading. First of all, why was it already illegal for all of us, but not for them?
That's right.
They were perfectly fine with it until we all found out that they were exempt.
Enforce the laws that are already there.
They just enforce the laws that are already there. Equality under the law, right? Well, we just discovered that here's something else, some members, some staff members, or I don't know exactly who they were, at the Federal Reserve, they reported security trades during the 2020 stimulus moves. And so now even members of the Federal Reserve are now under fire for placing trades with insider information. And now everybody wants to jump. Everybody thinks they're going to make a huge moral stand here and say, let's just ban them all from trading stocks. And philosophically, I'm kind of okay with that, but I do want people to still be able to have their freedom, even congressmen and women.
Of course.
But listen, if we can't place insider trades, neither can you. It's really that simple. It's just really that simple.
I see what you're saying, that the banning might be a bridge too far. We don't need to ban them. We just need to hold them to the same rules that we are accountable to.
Exactly. Just hold them to the exact same standard. That's really all anybody's asking for. And if we would, this wouldn't be a problem. But they've been exempt from insider trading for years until they finally got caught, and then they all thought they acted like they were just as shocked as we were. What? You mean we've been placing insider trades? Nancy Pelosi's like, we're going to get to the bottom of this. She's got like $50 million in the bank. How do you do that when you spent your whole life in public office? It's from the insider trades. Anyway, Libs at TikTok. So right now, Governor DeSantis in Florida. If you listen to the show for any amount of time, if you've gone back and looked at the show notes at paulkurtman.com, you've seen we have Libs at TikTok. And this is America. You are supposed to be free to do whatever you want as long as you're not using your liberty and your rights to infringe on somebody else's liberty and rights. And that's where tolerance comes in. If somebody else is living a lifestyle that you don't agree with, just tolerate it, let them do it. But once they start forcing you to abide by their rules and their criteria and mollycoddle their ideology, that's where I draw the line, because, everybody should be free to think and believe whatever they want as long as they're not hurting or forcing anybody else to do the same. So Libs at TikTok has actually done a really good job of this. There is the LGBTQ community. There is a section, a faction within this community. And I'll call it that because I don't know enough about it. But we know that there's a group of people who are very carefully trying to get into schools to groom children at a very early age. And we've played clips on the show of kindergarten teachers that actually create criteria. Like, they're going to have their little math class, their little science class, and then they actually will have a little class on what the LGBT community is and how they should become a part of it or become an ally. Like, this is happening in government schools. So Governor Ron DeSantis, he's saying enough. We're getting back to reading, writing, arithmetic, history, things like that, things that schools are supposed to be doing. And schools are not going to be allowed to promote the agenda or the political beliefs or the ideology of the LGBTQ community, right? And so the left is losing their minds over this. And it was just in Florida recently that a parent found out that some staff at a school were secretly meeting with their daughter to convince her that she was actually a transgendered child and she should be living the life of a boy. They didn't know this, though. The parents didn't know this until the child tried to kill themselves. And then it all came to the surface. Governor DeSantis' bill is really, really causing a problem for some people. Here's one activist. You can actually watch this video at paulkurtman.com, radio number 35. Here we go.
As an American citizen, I find it truly disgusting that my country goes 40 steps forward just for people like the governor of Florida to take us 30 steps backwards. Don't say gay, Bill. Are you serious? Don't talk about what I went through and what my fellow gay LGBTQ plus community went through to get me here. Are you serious right now? Is the government sleeping? Why are they letting you do this? Isn't this the free country, the free world, freedom of speech? Don't say gay. That goes against freedom of speech. You cannot sit here and say being gay is not a choice when you're not gay. You don't know that. Now you want to make learning about our history illegal? You are literally making it harder for children to feel comfortable because conservative parents feel like it's not okay. They're not gay. It's not their place to talk about it. Stop being concerned with what other people like. This is disgusting.
Teacher faction of the education industry from trying to make headways and actually tell children how to think or feel or actually consider whether or not they themselves should be transgendered or are transgendered. But this guy says basically the same thing that this state representative from Wisconsin said. You don't own your kids, the state owns your kids. Parents shouldn't be concerned about kids being taught this as young as 4. Anyway, you can watch this full video at paulkurtman.com. Make sure you go to newstalkstl.com, sign up for the newsletter. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Getter. And this is Paul Kurtman with Max Foyes today in the studio. We'll be back next week.
Oh, it was so fast.
It's
a fast show, jeez.
It is incredibly fast.